Hello, I'm Dr. Katherine Horton. I would like to summarize the nature of the crimes once more that are being committed against me, because this is an ongoing crime and I realize that the information is spread over several videos, and if you're new to this topic, it's bewildering, there's too much information. So I'm going to summarize what is being done to me, what has been done to me, and what is being done to me. And I'm telling you, the attacks against me are getting harder and harder and harder. The violations are ever more psychopathic, ever more degenerate, and ever harder, more sickening crimes against humanity. This is hard to believe for a normal person, but the first thing you have to understand is that the people who are doing this are not normal. They are clinical psychopaths. In a sense, they are very, very sick people. You have to imagine the high security psychiatric ward of a prison, where you've got the sickest people, the serial killers who are so deranged that for most normal people it's just a freak show to just hear about what they have done. Well, the people who are in these high security prisons are only a small fraction of the psychopaths we have in our society. And the sad truth is that all psychopaths are capable of exactly the same things, and in fact a large fraction of them have the urge to do exactly the same things. In a sense, the people who are in prison are only the ones we manage to catch. And as you probably have realized, the police isn't excelling in all cases catching criminals. Now, what we're dealing with is exactly the same type of clinical psychopaths, but this time at the top of our organizations. I will put up a video explaining systems analysis, why you expect clinical psychopaths to accumulate at the top of our organizations naturally. So this isn't at all surprising. But nevertheless, if you don't work in a high security prison and you're not a forensic psychiatrist, then the sort of things that these men, for it is mostly men, do will shock you. It will shock you deeply. And it should also scare you, because these men are essentially running our most dangerous organizations, the military and the intelligence agencies. And a lot of them are out of control clinical psychopaths who are using the cover of national security and the Official Secret Act, for example, in the UK, and things like that, to get away with whatever they want, and also to incentivize actively their friends from whom they want favors to take part in these crimes, so that they have a control file on them. This is a lucrative business. This is highly addictive to men. It is highly addictive to clinical psychopaths to commit offenses, to maim, and especially to maim vulnerable people, so to maim women and children. And if you've listened to the child sex abuse, you have heard about the prolific, absolutely astounding amount of child sex abuse that has been now uncovered to have happened in the UK. But one of the things I can tell you as a systems analyst is that this is not specific to the UK, simply because the structure of the organizations is identical around the world, and the mechanisms that have corrupted these organizations, which led to this prolific child abuse, are essentially operating in all countries. So you can expect the same amount of child abuse in the US, in the UK, in Germany, in South Africa, in China, wherever you are, because the systems that we have traditionally, for historical reasons, built up are vulnerable to exactly the same thing, which is capture by clinical psychopaths. And clinical psychopaths always do the same thing. They get off on maiming. That is how they live out their power. So at some point they will first begin with controlling people, and the ultimate control is to murder them, is to maim them, to harm them, to murder them. And then one level up is to get others to maim and murder them, because then those others become guilty, and then the psychopath will have a control file on them. Do you understand? So this is why it is a natural phenomenon everywhere around the world. I am not against specifically British intelligence or German intelligence or the German military or the English military. Oh no. I am against these men who are clinical psychopaths who infest all our organizations. After the banking crisis, I probably will not have to convince you very hard that there are very powerful organizations with totally messed up men at the top. So what we are witnessing, in a sense, and what I am talking about, are these crimes committed by clinical psychopaths. I am also a victim, my family is also a victim of these crimes, and I am desperately asking for your help, because the one thing that literally sets off clinical psychopaths, in a sense it's like a primordial trigger, is to find somebody who's vulnerable and who is isolated. And I am very isolated. And as a result, I have not just received death threats, I continue receiving death threats, and I have survived an assassination attempt. I am being maimed daily, and the offences against me are getting harder and harder and harder. And this phenomenon you will find if you study forensic psychiatry. It is a classical trait of clinical psychopaths that they will want to find harder offences to get off, to satisfy themselves, and they will not stop by themselves. So what I'm saying should not come as a surprise to forensic psychiatrists. And also, it should not come as a surprise to anybody who is in law enforcement and had to investigate child sex abuses, because the same thing is also true of pedophiles. Pedophiles will eventually seek out ever harder pornographic images and videos, and eventually when they become active, they will want to commit ever harder offences. And this is what we're dealing with. You just have to add the individual puzzle pieces together in your head. And in a sense, what you have is the nature of clinical psychopaths, the system analysis effect of phenomenon that they will rise to the top of our organizations. And the third element that you need to understand what is going on, is networking. The networking of men of a certain disposition. And that also should not come as a surprise, given that you know by now that pedophiles network, pedophiles found their own groups to be able to live out their predilections. And that is also true of powerful men at the top of our organizations. They too network, as we've seen over and over and over. And as they network, they will capture ever more organizations. And by the time they have reached critical mass and they have captured the top of the judiciary, the top of the police, they can get away with everything they want. And if they have, say, friends who've got the same predilections as them in the military, they will have access to top military equipment for their predilections. And when they have this access, it is impossible for them to resist the temptation to use it. So this is what we're dealing with. This is the root cause of everything that I'm talking to you about. I will keep the videos very short so that you can actually focus in on the information that you want. But I ask you to please support me, because what I'm dealing with is essentially out of control clinical psychopaths at the top of certain organizations who have networked themselves and who turn on the weakest with impunity. This means that they have established a modus operandum whereby they can freely, and at the time and at the location of their choosing, maim any woman, any child, and any man they want, and get away with it. And they have done that now in the numbers of thousands. There are thousands known victims. I don't know of a single police investigation that has put a stop to this. And I don't know of a single court case that has successfully managed to stop the clinical psychopaths at the top of our intelligence agencies. To this date, they have carte blanche to kill and maim whoever they want to. And their friends with identical predilections in the judiciary and the police have backed them up for decades. And the problem is that now they are expanding. They are getting ever more friends on board, and they are hunting for ever more people to maim and mutilate. And they make money off the maiming and mutilation when it's part of weapons testing for the arms industry, or medical testing or medical weapons testing for the pharma industry. So you can be next, because the probability that you'll be targeted is higher than it has ever been, and it is much higher than you think. I have now evidence, definite evidence, for lawyers, doctors, scientists, academics, politicians, single moms and pensioners, all being targeted in ever larger numbers. And when a system begins to maim and murder in ever larger numbers, it means it is out of control. It means that it will take everybody's effort, whoever you are, if you're a politician, or if you're literally just unemployed, or if you're a disabled person thinking you already have enough problems for yourself on your own. I'm telling you, you need to help me, because what is affecting me will very soon affect you as well. Either directly, because these clinical psychopaths turn on people like you. If you're a politician, it's because you're powerful and there's a lot to get. If you're disabled and you're isolated, it is because you are disabled and isolated and you're easy prey. So wherever you are in society, these people are now out attacking everybody. And therefore we all have to stand together and put a stop to this. So this is the root cause, and I will explain in the next video the nature of the crimes that these men are committing against me and against many others. Thank you for listening, and please have a look at the next video.